Welcome and thank you for joining us. Today's presentation will provide an overview of the proposal and review process for requesting an allocation of technology resources available via the United States NAIRR Pilot Program. My name is Tim Middlecoop and I'm joined by my colleague Lauren Michael.
We are co-principal investigators on a National Science Foundation grant awarded to the Internet 2 in partnership with the Campus Research Computing Consortium of research computing and data professionals. Through this grant, we are supporting NAIRR Pilot communications and user facilitation activities by leveraging CaRCC's network of these professionals who support educators and researchers across the country. Internet 2 is a nonprofit .edu that operates the National Research and Education Network backbone and supports related collaboration technologies and communities, like CaRCC and its partners. While today's content does not necessarily reflect the views of the National Science Foundation or of other partners of the NAIRR Pilot, we have received significant review and input to the content of this presentation from NSF officials and from others executing the proposal, allocation, and user facilitation components of the NAIRR Pilot. Today, we will briefly introduce the types of computing and data resources available through the program and discuss requirements for proposers seeking access to allocations of these resources for research and teaching activities involving an artificial intelligence component. The majority of the presentation will then focus on guidance for proposing access to NAIRR Pilot resources, with descriptions of the review and allocation process, specific proposal instructions, review criteria that clearly address that proposers need to cover in their proposals, and common reasons for rejection that proposers can avoid by clearly addressing these criteria. A lack of detail in resource calculations has been the most common reason for rejection, so we will spend a fair amount of time discussing appropriate resource estimates in the latter portion of the presentation. In this presentation, language will appear in italics when it has been taken directly from the call for proposals or elsewhere on the NAIRR Pilot website. For those less familiar with the NAIRR Pilot program and its overall objectives, we recommend consulting the resources linked on the pages on this slide, which describe the full scope of agencies, other partners, allocable resources, and available funding associated with the program. Information that will reference for proposing allocable NAIRR Pilot resources can be found on the designated NAIRR Pilot portal at nairrpilot.org. One thing to remember is that the NAIRR Pilot is a pilot and not yet a fully funded program, such that some processes and associated programs continue to grow and improve. The NAIRR Pilot welcomes you to apply for a resource allocation for your AI-related research and education projects. Some examples of use cases for NAIRR Pilot resources include delivering hands-on AI courses or workshops for teaching high school students to apply pre-trained AI models to data with notebooks, developing a new foundational model using large-scale medical imaging datasets, or even monitoring wildlife. There are a large range of potential applications, resource needs, and technologies, with more details included on the NAIRR Pilot portal. Computing capacity, models, tools, and data resources are allocable via the NAIRR Pilot and listed across web pages for AI-relevant researcher projects and for AI-relevant classroom/educator activities. People interested in proposing allocations of resources should check the portal for new or changing opportunities and details, in addition to what is covered in today's presentation. Please note that the availability of resources may change due to demand or as additional resources come available through the program. The Research Resources Call page contains some information that applies across both calls, and then each call page separately lists relevant resources with filters for viewing specific types of resources within these. For example, if you wish to only use federal agency systems that provide GPU resources, you can select those filters. Each resource listed can be expanded to show more details about the resource and contains important information relevant to the proposal. For example, the NVIDIA DGX Cloud can only be allocated as a full rack of 32 nodes in whole month increments. Even if you know the resource, please read carefully. Proposals that do not align with resource-specific requirements and service units may be rejected. The Classroom Educator Resources call also contains important information which should be read carefully. For example, the call is only open to US-based educators and researchers teaching courses for which all individuals performing work will do so via an eligible organization physically based in the US. There is also a similar tool that lists resources available for courses as there was for research. Please note that the available resources and the information and requirements for them differ between the research and classroom/educator calls, and we'll cover some of these differences. At this time, proposals for allocations of either type of resource are accepted at any time and with a soft deadline on the 15th of the month ahead of a monthly review process. Research proposals should be submitted if and when a project is ready to immediately take advantage of the requested resources upon favorable review and notification, according to the timeline described on this slide. Classroom educator proposals will need to list a specific start date for the course described. Proposals are peer-reviewed approximately monthly by a recruited set of peer reviewers from the AI research, education, and computing communities. Selected proposals are then matched and perhaps adjusted or declined by a matching committee based upon preference or resource availability. Adjustments may be made if the proposed scale of resources is not well justified. Awardees can expect to be notified within 3 months, with turnaround times varying mostly with the number of proposals received for that month, and typically going under or less than 3 months. Finally, PIs are expected to provide regular progress reports to demonstrate progress. Even though there are separate research and educator/classroom resources calls with their own requirements, there are a number of common requirements. For example, the principal, investigator, lead instructor, and/or all other users or learners must be from an eligible organization physically based in the United States. Award details and abstracts will be published on the NAIRR Pilot website, and any relevant pre-existing grant funding should be described in the proposals. Activities without prior merit review are subject to additional scientific or pedagogical review. Please note that there are general requirements at the top of the Researcher Resources call page that also apply to the Classroom Educator Resources call, but there are separate proposal instructions and other requirements for each call within their pages. We will now focus on the Classroom/Educator program and proposal guidance, and you'll see parallels for the researcher call. As indicated earlier, the NAIRR Pilot Classroom/Educator call is open to US-based undergraduate and graduate courses and other short-form training sessions for other groups of learners. Of note, all instructors and learners must be physically based in the United States. Instructors are invited to a NAIRR Pilot chat channel and expected to provide an exit interview with feedback to improve the NAIRR Classroom Educator Pilot. Proposal instructions are included in the Classroom Educator call page. Please read and follow all instructions. The 3-page project description must follow a prescribed outline to address specific review criteria, with references and other supporting documents counted separately. There are specific document formatting requirements listed on and/or linked from the call webpage. The course syllabus should be ready to go with a specified start date. Instructors should have tested a majority of the course content on similar systems and with other individuals, such as TAs or in other classes. Submissions must use institutional email addresses and not something like Gmail. The review criteria for Classroom Educator proposals are as follows. The proposal must demonstrate alignment with the educational and workforce development focus of the NAIRR Pilot, and it must demonstrate that the course is ready to teach. The proposal must match the resources offered. Reading the resource descriptions in the call carefully for details and how to request them is really important here. Having taught previous classes or testing the course materials on the same or similar resources goes a long way to demonstrate that the class is ready to teach. And one more thing to note, there is an expectation that resource providers are not the primary source of technical support for learners, such that proposals should address how instructors will support learners during the course. We provide here an example of a resource justification from a Classroom/Educator proposal. Please take a moment to read it. It's just the portion that very clearly specifies the amount of resources needed. You'll quickly note that the proposers are requesting both AI notebooks and computing capacity, with each expressed in different resource-specific service units, and with a clear multiplication per the number of learners and hours of that resource needed. The proposers also requested support to integrate the GPU resources, which is an applicable form of support to requests so that the instructor is then prepared to directly support all learners. Also note how the specific numbers and calculations are obvious. They're placed in a table for clarity, and this makes it easy to see what is being requested for reviewers. Instructors may also wish to request access a few months before the class starts to provide some preparation time. We will now focus on the NAIRR Pilot Research Resources call. There are a number of requirements for research projects, and we'll highlight some of the most important ones here, but you should, again, read what's online and especially look for anything that has changed since the delivery of this presentation. Project results must be open and actively shared with the community, and projects must be completed within 12 months for research projects. Projects are required to complete regular progress reports and a final report, and you can see the URL listed here for some specific details about what that reporting will look like. Again, for complete eligibility and requirements, look back at the NAIRR Pilot website. One of the requirements is that research proposals should align with the NAIRR Pilot cross-cutting focus areas, one or more of them, or the domain-specific focus areas. Otherwise, projects in other areas of AI research and applications may secondarily be considered for allocation. While we will not read all of these to you here, you can refer to the website where they're all listed again when preparing your proposal. One way to assess alignment to the focus areas is to also look at projects already awarded on the resource awards pages for either call. Here you can also find information about the size and specific resources awarded to get an idea for your own request. We'll now outline the proposal submission process. First off, it is very important to read and follow the call and the instructions, as we've said before. Secondly, it's important to recognize that a NAIRR Pilot resource request is not a research or course proposal, but a request for computational and data resources. And so the structure and review criteria for proposals may be new. This has two implications. First, you have to demonstrate that you are ready to use the requested resources. And second, you're going to structure your proposal a bit differently. Along these lines, it's also important to note that proposals not supported by a merit-reviewed grant are going to be subject to additional scientific review. For this reason, you need to include related grant funding information with the submission or details otherwise about how effort and resources will be supported. Only after you are ready, prepare the proposal, then again, review eligibility requirements, prepare documents that meet the review criteria, which we'll cover next, and then submit via the NAIRR Pilot website. At a later date, you can always request a supplement to the award to add new or more resources, or request more resources in a separate proposal down the line. The product description for the research call is broken down into 4 parts as well. Part A covers the scientific technical goals and should be friendly for a general audience, not written for domain experts. Avoid undefined complex technical words and do not use unexplained acronyms. All this should not take more than about a page. If proposals include multiple projects, aims, or phases in the same proposal, it is important that the requirements and review criteria are covered for all of them in the 3 pages. This includes detailed calculations of resource estimates for each. Thus, proposers may wish to submit separate proposals timed appropriately for different projects, aims, or phases. You can have more than one project going at the same time. You can submit more than one proposal for different sets of work. Part B covers the compute, storage, and other resource estimates and justification, which we will cover in detail later. These must align with the scientific and technical goals. Part C details any support needs. In addition, any restrictions on code, data, or access should be noted here. And finally, Part D covers the team and team preparedness. Among other things, this is where you cover the team's experience with similar resources and scales. If others are going to be doing important work, their role and background needs to be covered in this section. Again, read and follow the instructions carefully, and I'll now hand it off to Tim.
Thank you, Lauren. I'm now going to go over the details of the review criteria for the research call. The proposal is reviewed according to the following criteria: alignment with focus areas, technical feasibility, project readiness, resource needs, resource estimates and justification, and team knowledge and experience. With regard to program alignment, reviewers will be asking whether your proposed work requires resources like those available via the NAIRR Pilot and that are not otherwise available to the proposal. Be sure to address this criteria by articulating the alignment with the specific NAIRR focus areas and by describing why you are pursuing resources available via the NAIRR Pilot. Feasibility. Is this an appropriate approach? Demonstrate the scientific and methodological feasibility. What methods are you using? Do you have some initial results? What other similar work is there? Demonstrate data feasibility. Do you have the data? Do you have access to the data? Is it ready to use? Is it regulated data? Demonstrate computational feasibility. Does it work on a subset or reduced model? Will it run on the requested resource? Will it scale? Project readiness. Is this the appropriate time? Project and team members should be as ready as they can be to use the requested resources. Any background research, development, testing, and optimization that does not require the resources should be completed and described as such relative to the described project phases, timelines, and scope of work to demonstrate that the project is ready to use the requested resources. This is especially important for data, which should be ready to use. And with the relevant data use agreements already in place, the proposal must indicate any support needs relevant to the NAIRR pilot resources. Prior use of a resource provider and working with them, perhaps via their office hours, can go a long way. Team experience. Is this the right team? The proposal should describe the appropriateness of the team given prior experiences with methods, resources, and scale. Specify access needs for each team member, as well as their individual citizenship and eligible organizational affiliation. Remember that training and educating future AI scholars is one of the NAIRR Pilot's focus areas for research projects. Need for resources. Are these the right resources? There are a wide range of resources available via the NAIRR Pilot, and you should utilize and justify the ones most appropriate for the computation and for the team. It is best to take the time to evaluate a resource and request it specifically, which also helps to demonstrate that you're ready to use the resources immediately. Also consider availability of resources. For example, 80 gigabyte A100 GPUs are a limited and heavily used resource. Do you really need an A100 with 80 gigabytes? It is acceptable to compare and describe performance differences as part of your proposal. Selecting no resource preference, choose for me, may be useful only if you can clearly demonstrate how your computations perform on one or more of the resources or hardware types, or you know multiple resources that have the same hardware. If you really don't know what you need, we strongly suggest attending the NAIRR Pilot Resource Provider office hours to help with your selection and testing before you submit the proposal. You may also consider a small initial allocation to perform tests on one or more resources, which we will touch on a bit later. Resource estimate. Is this an appropriate amount of resources? It is perhaps most critical that the proposals calculate resource requests based upon prior requirements and scaling information, perhaps from prior similar work, including specific benchmark tests and/or citable data from others. Failing to do so is the most common reason for rejection or for a significant reduction in allocated resources. For each methodologically linked project phase or category of AI-related computational tasks, how much computing time is needed on what resource type for how many such computations? How much data storage is needed for inputs and generated outputs? The most compelling estimates are based on benchmark tests with smaller portions of data or computational work that can be relevantly scaled to predict the full scale of resource needs. For clarity purposes, proposers may demonstrate scaled calculations via tables that capture benchmark values and relevant scaled-up calculations, totaled across project tasks and phases. Be sure to use resource-relevant units, for example, GPU hours, and if a resource is allocated in some other unit, be sure to also include a conversion to those units, for example, service units or dollars. For some resources, mainly public commercial cloud, you are also required to include a link to a resource pricing calculator with the results. Be sure that this link works. Remember, this is a math problem. Show your work. You will be graded on your answer. So how do you get good estimates? You test. Testing has a lot of benefits beyond just the numbers. It also demonstrates the project readiness. Obviously, you may not have the resources to do a full test, but you can run on a subset of the data, even though the results may not be scientifically meaningful. You also may be able to do testing that may be more scientifically meaningful on a reduced resolution or precision dataset. Remember, scaling is often nonlinear, and 2 data points is linear. However, one thing you should do is use similar hardware, such as GPU type and memory size, and environments. For example, don't assume that it is trivial to move from a HPC system to the cloud. For the cloud, there are changes beyond computational and storage that are hard to estimate. Testing is essential. One way to test is use systems already available to you, or to leverage startup and testing access options available from many of the resource providers who offer such access for these exact purposes. Also in the works is a small NAIRR Pilot launch allocation to help you get started on a resource with a modest allocation. This will probably be a simple request on the order of a few paragraphs, not a 3-page proposal. Here are some other resources that you can use for testing. Most have no-cost startup or exploratory type allocations. If you have a graduate student or postdoc, the Access Explore allocation is an excellent way of exploring Access resources. We will wrap up this section with some common proposal pitfalls. To be honest, we are being blunt here, but they are based on our experience as reviewers, and we want to help you succeed. The number one pitfall is not including sufficient detail for the resource request calculations. The statement, we estimate that we need 20 million GPU hours, by itself is not a sufficient justification for requesting millions of dollars worth of compute. One thing that may help is to imagine that this is a question on an exam and the students are asked to show your calculations. Another common pitfall is the failure to demonstrate that the team is ready to immediately use the resources. You should demonstrate that the team has the experience with similar resources and scale. Another way to demonstrate that you're not ready is by saying that the first 6 months of the project will be obtaining and preparing data. Finally, another pitfall is to use the same language you would use in a research grant proposal. This will set your proposal in the wrong direction. This is a request for resources to complete a specific computation. We'll now go over some examples, some good, some not so good. The following examples are redacted or generalized sections that detail resource requirements. The NAIRR Pilot website hopes to post full exemplar proposals soon. How would you rate this resource quantification? What is missing from this example? Even though this is a reasonable framework, it does not contain nearly enough information to justify the resource request. The hours in the storage are not broken down, and there are no calculations, nor a connection to methods that they are going to use. This slide just repeats what I just said. We are not going to attempt to fix this, but don't worry, we have some good examples coming up. Take a look at this example. What do you think? Is this a good resource quantification? Unfortunately, there are issues with this one as well. Upon initial inspection, there are lots of numbers apparently from benchmarks. However, it is not clear how those benchmarks are related in scale or complexity to the proposed work. And the benchmark requirements are not connected to the total via some numbers of anticipated training and tuning computations. There needs to be some multiplication and addition, and the numbers need to actually add up to the total. Make it easy for the reviewer to see and check your math. Again, this slide just repeats what I just said. Now that you understand the importance of testing, we'll present an example that was rated as excellent. Please take a moment to read it. Note the detailed calculations as well as the detailed testing. See how the table makes things clear? Finally, let's look at another one. Take a moment to read it. How is this one different and what do you like? As you can see, it is easy to follow how the resource request was arrived at. Take the number of unique monthly users, test how many tokens are required per user per month, and then compute the total number of tokens required for this project and convert it into dollars. In this case, if you do the math, it ends up being about 15 input tokens and 75 output tokens per unique user, which sounds reasonable. As you can see, this gives you a lot of insight into what is being done. If I were to improve this request further, I would spell out the token consumption per user in the calculations and add a summary table at the end to show this information. Also note that they specify GPT-4o. In some scenarios, specific choices may have an impact on resource consumption rates. Also note the consistent use of units. Without units, it is just a number. Remember, show your work. So what did we learn today? This is a resource request proposal, not a research or course proposal. Adjust appropriately. Demonstrate that you're immediately able to start using the resource. Read and follow the instructions. Provide detailed justification and calculations for your resource request. Show your work. Ask for help. Leverage office hours. And I will now pass it off to Lauren.
We've got a list of resources here for help, all of which you can also find on the NAIRR Pilot portal. If you have questions, you can attend NAIRR office hours or submit a NAIRR Pilot ticket. It's also possible to discuss specific questions about resources with the resource providers. And be sure to download today's slides for future reference. Speaker notes are included in those, and I've linked to them again in the chat. We can also put this slide back up after the recording. We would like to thank everyone who provided input informing our development of this content. As a reminder, any opinions, findings, and conclusions or recommendations expressed in this material are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the views of the National Science Foundation.